Picture a sourcing director somewhere in New York today preparing 3 different landed cost models, one for Vietnam, one for Bangladesh, and one for a quota that doesn't really exist. This is the position of the retail industry today, and it is because in a US customs filing dated July 24th, there's a sentence written for trade lawyers, and it is about to reroute where the world produces a major chunk of its apparel. On print, it reads like punishment, but it is actually a sales pitch, a pitch to buy American cotton.
Actually, $18 billion of apparel trade is at stake as per the sourcing intelligence platform Textile. One major supplier has been excluded. In fact, the US textile industry is divided over the issue.
Today, we are calling it Cotton-for-Quota Bargain, a forced labor penalty which has been turned into a demand generation machine for American cotton. I am Ananya Mariam Rajesh.
I am Milind, and this is Fiber to Fashion Prime.
The Whiplash Timeline.
Before we get to cotton, we would like to set the timeline correct. Because July 24th did not happen out of nowhere. It's the third act of something that's been building over a year. When we rewind to last year, Washington, under the Trump administration, pushes for hefty reciprocal tariffs onto several countries. This sends sourcing teams into a panic, and several buyers and brands are now scurrying factories to avoid paying high taxes.
Nearshoring becomes the word of the season. Mexico, Central America, the Kaftadia corridor. Money genuinely starts moving in that direction.
Then, in February this year, US Supreme Court strikes down those tariffs. These tariffs, which were issued under the emergency IEEPA rule, a real reversal, not a tweak.
And those IEEPA duties were largely refundable. Importers had a real claim back.
But here's the whiplash. The factories that had already invested in several locations did not uninvest. Money was already sunk into new locations, and the logic that justified them was just reversed. This all happened even before July 24th had started.
China, meanwhile, continued to have the significant presence, ranking as the second largest apparel supplier to the US. Its exports to the US were valued at $12 billion in 2025, according to Textile.
Which is really the subtext of everything that follows. This next move isn't just about forced labor. It is about Washington looking for China's next replacement as the trusted supplier, and steering it towards a country that buys American cotton.
This has been the recurring themes across stories that we have filed this month. Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, Mexico. The key question is which countries will have the market share previously held by China and under what terms?
So, on July 24th, Washington does not reach out for emergency powers again, but instead it goes for Section 301, a more older and litigation-tested route, wherein the entire framework is centered around forced labor enforcement across 60 economies.
Yes, the tariff covers 60 economies with rates either of 10% or 12.5% depending on the country. At the first glance, the measure may appear unrelated to cotton.
Until you read the fine print. Buried inside is a mechanism that has nothing to do with forced labor, but everything to do with who buys American fiber.
How the mechanism actually works.
So let's walk through this mechanism again. On July 24th midnight, the US has now gone into force with a new Section 301, where a 10 to 12.5% extra tariff will be levied on countries on top of what they've already been paying.
And that already paid part matters because apparel's baseline MFN duty already runs around 0 to 32%, with depending on fiber type, with cotton apparel generally running rates of around 8 to 16.5% and man-made fiber apparel 16 to 32%. The new duty imposed on top of the existing tariff rates.
But buried in the same presidential memorandum is a tariff rate quota, or TRQ. And this is mainly for 4 countries: Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Malaysia.
A TRQ allows a specified volume of apparels to enter without the new duty rates. Once that quota is exhausted, imports exceeding the limits are subject to the applicable full duty rates. And here is the twist. The quota is not fixed. It is calculated on the basis of 2 factors. Number 1, the volume of US cotton and man-made fiber imported by a country, and amount of raw US cotton it purchases directly. So, higher purchases of American fiber can result in larger duty-free quota.
This is a forced labor penalty that has been quietly wired into a cotton sales target. That is actually the full story. But it is not even live yet because USTR is expecting it to be operational only on September 1st because a federal register is yet to set up the total volumes that would be exempted. And until then, these 4 countries are also going to pay the baseline of 10% tariffs. So we are looking at a tariff quota that has no shape or form yet.
The 4 who stand to gain.
Let's size the price. According to Textile's data, the total apparel import from these 4 eligible countries into US totaled $18.3 billion, of which $9.63 billion were knitted and $8.72 billion were woven. Bangladesh alone made roughly $8 billion of that.
Yes, according to Texpro's full year 2025 data, Bangladesh led the group with apparel exports worth $8.2 billion, followed by Cambodia at $5.1 billion and Indonesia at $4.8 billion. Bangladesh was the 5th largest destination for US cotton in 2024, with imports valued at around $250 million according to the USDA. It was also the world's largest cotton importer the same year, purchasing over 5 million bales.
It has both the appetite and the spinning capacity to buy meaningfully more.
Indonesia ranked a distant second, importing $139 million worth of US cotton. But its domestic fiber association reported the spinning capacity was operating at below 50% utilization.
So, its ambition hits a hard ceiling. Malaysia is smaller still, with just around $57 million. But Cambodia is the real outlier. It barely spins at all.
Cambodia remains primarily cut and sew apparel manufacturing economy, with US raw cotton not even ranking among its top 10 import sources.
It imports finished yarn and fiber from Vietnam and China. So 4 winners is actually doing a lot of hard work in its line, but rather it is really 1 clear winner and 3 much harder cases. The excluded giant, Vietnam.
Now, there's an excluded giant. The country that isn't really making to it is Vietnam, which is actually the single largest apparel supplier to the US. Full stop.
Texpro puts Vietnam's apparel exports to US at $17 billion in 2025, which is a little more than 20% of the entire US apparel import market. It is little lower than China's $11.96 billion, Bangladesh $8 million combined.
And its lead is still widening. Texpro's data shows that Vietnam's shipments were more than $5 billion in the first 4 months of 2026. This is a more than 1% increase year on year, and at a time when US apparel imports have actually fallen 12%. In this, Vietnam's share was more than 21%, and it still is in the 12.5% tier, while its 4 rivals sits in the 10% category.
Applying the 2.5 percentage point tariff difference to Vietnam's $17 billion in trade produces theoretical exposure of around $426 million. This is purely a mechanical calculation, not a forecast. Since it assumes unchanged trade volumes, it does not account for exemptions, product reclassifications, or any other adjustments.
Once the quota is live for rivals, a $40,000 containers gap could widen to roughly $5,000, since Bangladesh or Cambodia's duty would now effectively be zero, while Vietnam continues to pay the 12.5%. In an industry where labor makes 80 to 25% of a basic garment cost, that moves sourcing decisions faster.
This creates a notable paradox. According to TextPro, Vietnam purchased $1.4 billion worth of selected US cotton and fiber inputs in 2025, which is more than twice of the combined $699 million purchased by the 4 beneficiary countries.
The country that already buys American fiber is being left out of the reward. Eligibility tracks forced labor compliance, not fiber loyalty. Vietnam's own forced labor law only landed on July 22nd, 2 days before the US's Section 301 law went into effect. There's a strange symmetry here with China. Vietnam was meant to be the safe alternative to China, but now it's being treated similarly to China, while smaller economies with less capacity get the reward. And the brand exposure is real. Nike sources 31% of its apparel and over half its footwear out of Vietnam, while Under Armour and Ralph Lauren carry meaningful exposure. Nobody moves a supply chain that size overnight.
Ground truth. Voices from Dhaka and India.
Numbers can only tell you so much. So we spoke to the ones on the floor, people actually making these calls while working in the factories. Start with Bangladesh, the largest one on paper to receive this benefit. Arifur Rahman, senior merchandiser at Padma Textiles, who supplies to Zara, Mango, Primark and Macy's, told us that the tariff advantage genuinely can improve competitiveness, but the real benefit depends on sourcing economies, lead time and buyer acceptance.
Optimistic, conditional.
More conditional still, SS Akshemul, who runs sourcing platform Albuiva, a B2B network with over 18,000 active buyers and around 5 million factory-ready listings, gave us the operational reality. Bangladesh consumes around 8 million bales of cotton a year. Historically, only 10 to 12% came from the US. The industry is now discussing pushing that to 30 to 50%. But US cotton shipments take 30 to 45 days to arrive, against much faster regional sourcing, and Bangladesh has already seen order cancellations over missed timelines. Buyers now ask about sourcing origin and tariff exposure before placing orders. Barely this has come up before this year.
The mechanism is already influencing sourcing and trade discussions, even before the value of any quota has been confirmed.
Now, conspicuously undecided country is India. Not excluded and penalized like Vietnam, it just sits on the sidelines. Same 10% Section 301 duty as everyone else. No TRQ carve-out either way.
And that sideline is bigger than it may appear. The Global Trade Research Initiative estimates that around 70% of India's textile exports to the US are subject to a flat 10% tariff without any quota-based relief.
Shravanti Kanchalla, who runs Supriya Spinning Mills, said that mills have spun US cotton before, but switching wholesale means higher freight, currency risk, real strategy change. And this only makes sense if the tariff gap outweighs those costs.
And not every mill can chase it.
Right, US cotton carries premium positioning, but lower or medium counts. In this case, Indian cotton is the most sensible input. Proving origin for US customs, what would have to do separate stocking, detailed recording, and third-party certification. These are doable, but a real complexity. And there's an irony here. India already grows enough of cotton for itself. Purchasing US cotton would make us being less self-sufficient. But India's edge, integrated value chain, skilled manpower, capacity, diverse product range, helping outlast any single policy.
The fight inside the US industry.
What surprised me the most is that the US industry is not on one side of the story. It's split. There is a divide. With cotton growers, they have seen a new export market with Asia. A clear win, no argument.
It's worth mentioning why they need the support. The USDA's Great American Cotton Plan estimates that growers could lose about $2.6 billion over 9 million planted acres this crop year, marking a fifth consecutive year of losses.
Which is why this reads as an industrial policy dressed up as a forced labor tariff. But US yarn and fabric mills, NCTU, normally love tariffs because tariffs help protect domestic mills. This flips that very logic. It rewards Asian factories for buying American raw cotton and finishing the garment themselves, not for buying the American yarn that mills already make.
So interestingly, US cotton is exported to Bangladesh and Indonesia, where it is spun and woven before returning to US market and competing with products made by NCTO members.
Exactly why NCTO President Kim Glass called the raw cotton provision a step backwards, warning it will harm the very manufacturers the administration says it wants to help.
NCTO represents an industry employing 453,000 workers, while 41 textile plants have closed over the past 2 years.
They have instead filed a counter proposal with AAFA, US FIA, and US INFI for tariffs credits instead, rewarding US made textiles and Western Hemisphere assembled apparel.
NCTO estimates that the measures could roughly double the US textile exports to Western hemispheres to around $29 billion and could support more than 56,000 jobs.
Now, the third camp, brands and retailers. They are stuck between weighing cheaper auctions on the cost of resourcing. Nobody has yet said a yes or a no here.
Layer this onto the last two chapters and you get the scorecard. US cotton growers up, Bangladesh conditionally up, Vietnam and textile mills down, while the apparel brands are assessing their potential cost and implications.
Brand margins and the consumer price question.
When brands haven't decided who actually absorbs this.
Several outcomes are possible. Suppliers may absorb some part of the additional cost, brand may bear some of it, renegotiate the prices, or shift the production to other sourcing markets, while some of the cost ultimately be passed on to the consumer through higher retail prices. In practice, a combination of likely responses are possible.
A 12.5% Section 301 tariff does not mean 12.5% jump at the till.
Not remotely. The impacts vary significantly depending on the existing MFN duty, production cost, freight, and margins. The US FIA estimated average apparel tariffs at around 1.3% for Mexico, 6% for CAFTA-DR countries, with comparing against 37.8% for India and 35% for China. This creates a gap of up to 36.5% even before the new duties are applied.
Which looks us back to the 18 to 25% labor cost buffer from Chapter 4, roughly the size of what brands and suppliers are fighting over before any of this hits the price tag on your clothing. But margin absorption also has a ceiling. If cost pressures persist and sourcing shifts cannot offset it, some of this is going to reach the consumer. It would be a gradual shift, not a drastic jump, because margins are already running lean.
The reality check. Does a tax break actually move factories?
Before we wrap, does a duty-free lane actually move where clothes are being made? History says not automatically.
Mexico and CAFTA-DR countries have benefited from duty-free access under yarn forward rules for 2 decades. However, Texpro's data shows that their combined share in the US apparel imports have declined from 13.9% in 2015 to 12.7% in 2025.
Shipment value dropped nearly 16% in that decade to more than $10 billion. Duty fully intact, but still shares slipped.
Tariff preference alone cannot create manufacturing capabilities. Texpro's data shows that just 2 categories, t-shirts and sweaters, accounted for more than half of region's US-bound apparel exports last year. Its presence in women's tailored apparel and outerwear remained limited, each accounting for less than 3%.
Which is the exact test that Bangladesh is sitting at. It has got the tax-free lane and also the cotton appetite. What it hasn't proven yet is the product breadth. Mexico didn't build either. 2. The lesson for Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia and Malaysia is the same one. A tax-free lane is an invitation for sure, but not a guarantee. Whoever builds the fabric, hits the quality bar and delivers on time gets the order.
What to watch and the so what.
Let's land this. What happens on September 1st is not just regulatory paperwork, but more so the real world friction hitting across the supply chain.
Right. If US tariff confirms the final quota volumes, then stakeholders across the supply chain will need to reassess their sourcing and pricing strategy. For brands and retailers sourcing from non-quota markets such as Vietnam and India, additional duties of 10 to 12.5% would put an immediate pressure on their margins. They may absorb some cost of it, negotiate with suppliers, or pass some of the cost on to the consumers.
And passing it on to the consumer is not simple. While a 12.5% tariff does not really translate to an immediate 12.5% jump at retail, margin cushions are already razor thin. So consumers are likely going to see a slow creeping inflation on everyday clothing over the next few quarters. This would make the clothes you wear more expensive right when household budgets are already stretched.
For manufacturers in Asia, September 1 implementation could create significant operational challenges. Factories in Bangladesh and Cambodia may benefit from the duty-free quotas, but the delays in securing US raw cotton or supply chain disruptions could limit their ability to take the advantage of the preferential access, potentially exposing the excess volume to the full applicable tariff rates.
Meanwhile, US textile mills face their own survival test. The very policy which is being designed to help US cotton growers are undercutting the domestic yarn producers, who are now fighting with incentivized, cheap and fully finished apparel import from Asian factories fueled by raw US fiber.
So as September 1st approaches, the question is not simply which countries or stakeholders will gain or lose, but how much additional volatility the global fashion industry can absorb without significant disruption.
When these new tariffs now squeeze brand margins to the brink, drive up retail prices for consumers, and cause more uncertainty for sourcing teams.
Only time will tell as the clock ticks down to September 1st.
Thanks for watching Fiber to Fashion Prime. I'll see you for the next deep dive.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dive videos coming soon.